Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today's video, we've got a getting started with Warhammer Age of Sigmar video for you, and today we're going to be looking at the Beasts of Chaos, and in particular, the Warherd, the Minotaurs, the Bulgors of the army. In this video, we're going to talk about first what exactly we get from a Beasts of Chaos army, and indeed what we get from being a Warherd specific Beasts of Chaos army, and then we're going to look at some units we can use to purchase as our first purchases to start off our army, and then have a look at as well some other units we can bring into the force to expand it even further to a full army. Lastly, we'll finish off the video with a little sample army list which you can use to get inspiration to do your own Warherd army, or indeed just copy our own army here if that's what you want to do. With that said, let's get cracking on and let's chat about what we get from a Beasts of Chaos Warherd army. And for starters, well, we're Beasts of Chaos, so this means we get access to Primordial Core Points and the Herdstone. Primordial Core Points are our summoning points for the army, where we can summon units to pretty much come in from ambush from the board edges of the table to help our Beasts of Chaos force. We get a certain amount of these each turn, and we can sacrifice models at the Herdstone and do wounds to models at the Herdstone to get extra points. And there's some other ways you can do it throughout the army as well. With that said, the Herdstone does have some really cool buffs. It puts out a -1 armor save aura as well as battle shock immunity starting at 6 inch and increasing at 6 inch every turn. So it can be quite good late game. For Bulgors though, and for the Warherd, they're a rather elite style Beasts of Chaos army. They're going to have very few models on the table, but they're going to have a decent amount of wounds on the table, with your Bulgors having a pretty decent wounds characteristic of 4 wounds apiece on a 5-up save, which can be pretty nice. Now, the army's two big things that we get for Bulgur specific rules are, first of all, we do mortal wounds on the charge. This is a rule that came in Broken Realms Kragnos. You can find the rules there at the back of the book. And so what happens is our Warherd units get to pick an enemy unit within an inch of them at the end of the charge phase, and then roll a dice. Add 2 to the roll if the Warherd unit is a hero or it has 3 or more models, and on a 4+, the enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So if the unit is at full strength at 3 models or is a hero, it'll be doing it on a 2-up. So some nice mortal wound splash damage there. Also, we get the cool ability where the Bulgors, if they have managed to slay any units in the combat phase, they get to heal some wounds to their unit as well. So some nice healing capabilities to keep our units nice and strong as well. A good solid round base of rules for mortal wound impact is pretty solid. But let's have a look at the units we need to grab to start our army up with. And so here to begin with, we're going to grab a Doom Ball. This is the leader option for the Warherd. And so what do we get? We get an 8 wound hero with a 4-up base save, 7 inch move, and bravery 7. It's got 2 attacks with its Bulgur horns, which are 4s and 4s, no rend damage 1, and then 3 attacks with its Slaughterer's axe, which is 3s, 3s, rend 2, damage 3. So a pretty tasty weapon there. It's got the Blood Greed ability, where each unmodified wound roll of a 6 for attacks made by this unit inflicts a mortal wound in addition to any other damage. This is on all its different attack profiles. And then it's got the command ability Slaughterer's Call, where you can use it at the start of the combat phase, and if you do so, pick a friendly Warherd unit, hold within a 12 inch of a friendly model with this command ability, and add 1 to their wound rolls. So pretty nice. +1 a wound is a nice command ability, and he's got the cool mortal wound output as well on his base war scroll. We then turn our attention to Bulgors, which are going to, of course, be our main line unit for the army. They become battle line so long as we have a Doom Ball as our general. And so they've got 4 wounds apiece on a 5-up save with 7 inch move and bravery 6. They've got a couple of different weapon options, so you can choose to either go with 1 or 2 Bulgur axes. If you go with 1, you're going to also get bull shields, and then you'll either go with dual hand weapons or a Bulgur great axe. Now, the difference between the two weapons. The Bulgur Great Axe, first of all, has 2 attacks, 4s, 3s, rend 2, damage 3. Very similar to what our Doom Ball has. However, if we choose to go with dual axes, the axe profile is 3 attacks, 4s, 3s, rend 1, damage 2. And the dual axes will give us reroll 1s a hit, meaning if we then instead go with the single axe and the bull shield, we'll get +1 to our save rolls. So this is a +1 to our save rolls, meaning it doesn't bonus the characteristic, meaning we can never get better than a 4+ on that unit. For me, The fact we can never get better than a 4+ with the Bull Shields just means we're using all our defense instead, or Mystic Shield, or Finest Hour on some of our heroes, and stuff like that. We're using other ways to get +1 save, I think, and it's better off either going with the Great Axe or the dual hand weapons. The dual hand weapons do give us the opportunity for more use of Blood Greed, very similar to what the Doom Ball had. It is anytime they roll a 6 to hit, they're going to do a mortal wound in addition to any other damage. So being able to reroll 1s potentially means more 6s. We've got access to a drummer and a banner bearer in the unit, +1 bravery for the unit if it's going to have a banner, and then we're also going to add 1 to charge rolls if we've got any drummers in the unit as well. So some nice command model upgrades there as well, including obviously a champion, which will give us +1 attack. This means the unit can use a command point on itself without needing a Doom Ball nearby, which is really, really useful. And so they're pretty much going to be the two core units that we focus the army around. So let's go have a look at some other units we can bring into our force later. And so where to next? Well, first of all, I'm going to suggest picking up some more Bulgurs and maybe another Doom Ball. They're a great use to get into your army, just having more of them. I mean, we're going to need more Bulgurs regardless, because they are the only battle line option we've got in this full Warherd army, unless we're wanting to go into other Beasts of Chaos units, like the Gore and Ungore and all that sort of stuff. Now, speaking of Gores and Ungore, I'm going to suggest picking up a Great Bray Shaman. This is a fantastic backfield hero and does give you a little bit of magical support in the army, but also when you pick him up, you're probably going to pick up something nice and cheap like some Ungore to give you some sacrifices for those primordial core points for your army. Otherwise, you're not really going to get an awful lot out of them, so this is definitely something to pick up. And just gives you access to the full array of rules for your army, and also means you're not having to sit, a Doom Ball back at your Hearthstone doing the sacrifices and wounding himself or Bulgurs to get your primordial cool point extras throughout the game. Now, onto the two monsters for the Warherd, and first of all we have the Sigmar. So the Sigmar has 14 wounds, a 5+ save, and a decreasing move value of 8 to 3 inch, so he can be pretty slow at times. His big thing is he's got the Desecrated Boulder, which is an 18-inch range at full bracket, 1 attack 4s and 2s, Ren 2 damage d6, and then he's got a massive 8 attacks at 4s, 3s, Ren 1 damage 1 with his massive horns in close combat. His big thing is that he can disbind 2 spells in the hero phase, the same as an enemy wizard, and in addition, each time he successfully does so, he does a mortal wound back to the enemy unit and heals a wound for himself. He can also reroll failed hit rolls for attacks made by him if he's ever targeting a wizard. This goes for his shooting and his close combat attacks, which is pretty nice. He is generally pretty swingy. I've used him in so many games. I love the model, but yeah, he's a really swingy option. But if your opponent's playing someone with heavy wizards, he could potentially have a use. The Gorgon is the other big monster, and this is the much more killy of the two monsters. His Butchering Blades have a 2-inch reach with a maximum of 5 attacks, 3 3s, Ren 1, damage 3. So he can be rather killy. He's then got his huge Slathering Maw, which is a 4 to hit, a 2 to wound at full bracket, Ren 1, damage d6. And he's got a couple of cool rules as well. Ravenous Blood Greed wounds each unmodified wound roll of a 6 for attacks made with this model inflicts d3 mortal wounds on the target in addition to any normal damage. And then he's got the Swallow Whole ability where each time this model attacks, you can pick an enemy model within 1 inch of this model after all of this model's attacks have been resolved and roll the dice. If the roll is equal to or greater than that model's characteristic, it's slain. So great at picking out conga lines and people who are trying to abuse the coherency system and stuff like that and play around it. You can just go, plunk, I picked out a model and now you're broken coherency. It's got some really cool rules. He's a really solid little monster that generally isn't the toughest with a 5+ save and 14 wounds. He will die pretty quick, but if he goes into something, he's got a good chance, if he rolls hot, to really do some serious damage. And so here we have our sample army list for you for the Bulgurs. And so we're going to be playing, obviously, Beasts of Chaos, Inca, hold the line. We think we've got a decent amount of meat there in the center of the army to hold the line. And a Triumph we've gone Bloodthirsty, which is going to be a rerollable charge, something we want to make sure we're getting all our charges off because of those mortal wound impact hits. A Doomball is going to be our general, and here we've gone for the Rugged Hide command trait, which is going to decrease all rend against him by 1, and then he's got the artifact, the Blackened Armor of Chaos, for a 4-up ward, which is a pretty solidly tough little Doomball there. We're then, because we've got a Warlord Battalion, able to take a second Doomball and have the artifact Herdstone Shard, which is going to turn on the Bloodgreed ability for all Bulgor units within 6 inch of him on a 5 or 6 rather than the 6 that it is, which is pretty cool because it's just going to mean we're doing a ton more mortal wounds out of all of them. This doesn't work on the Gorgon as he's got a different rule, even though he does have the Bulgor keyword. Now, we've then gone a Great Brave Shaman with Titanic Fury for +1 attack on all the profiles. Definitely good with our Gorgon. Other than that, Mystic Shield and Arcane Bolt will serve him pretty well. It's probably only going to get to cast Titanic Fury once or maybe twice a game when that Gorgon's nearby. Other than that, he's just going to sit backfield and sacrifice stuff for us. For Battle Line, we've got 3 units of 3 Bulgors, all with pairs of axes, though you could definitely have some great weapons and shields. Play around with how you want. You could build one of each to start with in this list if you really want. I just like the pair of axes. The rerolls for me just mean we're getting more out of our Bloodgreed ability. And then we've got a unit of 10 Ungors in there for sacrifices. And rounding out the army, we have a Gorgon, who's going to be our big monster. Now, battalion-wise, we've got a Warlord, which is going to give us that second artifact for the Herdstone Shard, and then Hunts in the Heartlands containing all our Bulgors, meaning they're all immune to monstrous rampages. Really important, means we're going to be able to get that 4-up save consistently on them. And the additional enhancement, as mentioned, we've got an artifact, that's why we've got the 2 in the army. At 945 out of 1,000, there's a good chance we are going to see the potential to get our Triumph in the army, which is nice. And we're 81 wounds, which is a pretty solid number for this point size. 8 drops is the big thing. We're very high drops in this army, but it is the thing. Once you start going over, you know, that 4 drop level, it doesn't really matter what you're doing at that point. So if you're playing with Beast of Chaos and playing with Warherd, let us know how you're going and what you're doing with the army in Age of Sigmar 3.0. Well, thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, if you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our fine little community here, you can do so by joining our Discord server, which is linked down in the description of the video. Also, if you'd like to help support the channel more financially, you can do so either by joining our Patreon or YouTube members, of which you'll find both the links of both of them down in the video's description as well. As a special thank you to everyone who does support the channel via Patreon and YouTube members, we'd like to give a shout out to them all. So a special thanks to our Patreons, Christian Weir, James Soren, Greenskins Gaming, AJC, Kenny Lowell, Outer and Shot First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Anton Nilsson, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater and Samuel. And a special shout out to our YouTube members as well: Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Chris Rollis, Ronya, Vinny, Lockloric, the Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Revenar, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Sean Scott, DS, and Ariana Edwards. And a special thanks lastly to, first of all, Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork you can see pictured here for the channel. And a special shout out to Xmorphic, who does all the amazing background work for our Discord server. You're both absolute legends. Thank you all for watching once again. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay safe, everyone. Stay well. Most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.